Welcome to Kindly Neurodivergent with Kay. Before we begin, I respectfully request that if you witness any pauses during this show, please continue watching. I'm composing a spontaneous comment or question, someone's processing their thoughts, in addition to repeating something that was unintelligible or misunderstood. It is natural discourse, and we can choose not to say anything while this is occurring. The experiences we discuss on this show are for educational purposes only. Please don't substitute them for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Today I have Christopher Bugaj with me. He will be discussing considering a specific language system first approach. Welcome, Christopher.
Hey there. So on this podcast, do you go by Kay or Kayla? Both. All right. Well, I'll call you Kayla then. Well, maybe I'll call you maybe I'll call you both. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah.
Please introduce yourself.
Sure. So my name is Chris Bugaj. The day job is assistive technology specialist for Loudoun County Public Schools, which is up in the Northern Virginia area. In Virginia, we have a county-based school district or school system. So I'm the assistive technology specialist for about 100 schools, all within one county. I have the great fortune to work with 9 facilitators that fan out across those 100 schools and provide assistive technology support. But Gayla, something we've learned over the years of doing this is that oftentimes the conversations we have with teachers around assistive technology actually lead to more about how we can ask them or invite them to design their instruction more, I'm going to say inclusively, right? Because over and over again, we see, oh, well, someone asks us a question, we provide some ideas, and they go, what if I just did that for everybody? It's like, yeah, go ahead. Do it for everybody. And then outside of that, Kayla, I've had the great fortune to write a couple books, and I do a podcast with Rachel Madel called Talking with Tech, which is all about AAC, which you've been a guest on.
Agreed, as sometimes I have asked for questions before class to pre-program answers.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's like a giving you those accommodations ahead of time, but who couldn't use something like that to be thinking about what would my answer be, right? It's a good, inclusive, anybody could use that strategy.
That is why I always work with my guests to make outline.
Same. I would say with the Talking with Tech podcast, almost unless someone requests that we don't, we send some ideas of what the questions are going to be, and we think of it like, at least I think of it, I think Rachel does too, like a tree. Like here's the tree trunk, and occasionally we can go off on branches. Things come up, and we don't want to tell people not to go on different ideas they have, but then we'll come back to the tree trunk to go back to those questions.
You don't want to be robotic either.
Yeah, exactly. You want to be fluid if you can.
Ew.
All right, so let's talk about the specific language system first approach. What can I
What
how can
is
I
the
help you?
specific language system first approach?
All right,
What is
good
the
question.
specific language system first approach? What is the specific language system first approach?
Great question. So, many years ago, working in public schools, doing assistive technology evaluations, I saw a pattern exist where traditionally how an assistive technology evaluation was done or an AAC evaluation was done is that a speech therapist or someone like that would be called into a situation where someone were considering AAC, and that traditional model was, this is your story. I know I listened to your episode on Talking with Tech, right? So this one person comes out, thinks about three things that they might want to try, even though in their head they probably already know the one they want. So the other two are just sort of like, we're going to cut those out. But I got to say that I considered them. And then this one person is going to pick something, and then I'm going to implement it. I'm going to give it to the team to implement. And then lo and behold, someone will learn language that way and they'll use AAC.
Oh,
And if I remember your episode, that was your story too, right? Someone came to you, did an evaluation, and then the thing you got wasn't actually the thing that worked. Is that fair?
ew.
Dynavox.
Yeah, yeah. Which is not to say Dynavox is not right for the other people, but for you, that system of one person picking something didn't work. And Kayla, what I found over, this is jumping ahead a little bit, but doing the Talking with Tech podcast, Rachel and I interview AAC users from all over the world. And that same story is told, or your story of how someone picked something for me and it didn't work for me, and I had to go find something else. We hear that over and over again. Fair. Do you see that too?
Ew.
Intense feelings towards my big, bulky, and expensive Dynavox. My
Mm-hmm.
biggest complaint was that it constantly kept freezing, especially when I had something important to say. Many repairs were constantly necessary for this dinosaur, and let's definitely not underestimate the stress without a concrete visual audio system in place. In high school, it was suggested that I bring in my 9.4-inch iPad. Lo and behold, I finally found a reliable communication application called ProLoquor to go. I actually prefer not to utilize the pre-programmed grids that automatically are provided on ProLoquor to go. I find that it is too limiting and reminds me of the dinosaur I had. However, I take advantage of pre-programming my own thoughts for any presentations, interviews, and/or conversations I participate in. After graduation, I had another AAC evaluation where I switched to the device that I still have now, a 12.9-inch iPad Pro.
Mm-hmm. Kayla, if I got it right, are you saying that in Proloquo to Go, you're mostly using you pre-program things for speeches, but then in spontaneous stuff, you jump over to the keyboard and you're using the keyboard primarily? Is that right?
Ew. Ew.
Or fingerspell.
Or do finger spelling. Okay, cool. So back to the specific language system first approach. So this phenomenon exists that maybe one person doing an evaluation isn't necessarily the best. And there's other things problematic with sort of the traditional model of we're going to trial three things. Again, this is back in 2015. I'm wondering, well, what does trialing look like? There's about a billion variables about that have to do with someone's success. So how do you know? Is the teacher know how to implement it? If the teacher does, what if the teacher's sick? Do the teaching assistants know? Do the subs know? What if the student's sick? Why did you pick the number of days that you did to do this trial? Is there some sort of research around that, or did you just pick 2 weeks? Because why not 2 weeks? Right? There was a lot of, and then I could go on with problems.
And you can't bring it home.
Now, in some school districts, you can, like in our school district, you bring it home. But yes, that could be a thing, right? Like if you're just trialing it, maybe you're only trying it at school. And then here's the thing, Kayla. So let's say this person has picked something for you or for the student to try, and then it seems to be working. Do you ethically take it away because you think something else might be working better? Or do you like, well, this they seem to like this, so why do I need to try something else? And whatever your rationale is for why you chose the first thing to try anyway, why wouldn't that just be your rationale to implement it right now and not waste months of time trying things out, but just pick something and let's rock and roll. Let's go.
I was a sophomore when we switched.
Mm-hmm. And when you switched, it was still one person that's kind of helping you decide that it should be this thing, or did it become a team approach where your case manager and your family and you and the speech therapist all had equal input on what you were going to use?
My special education teacher just knew that I had an iPad.
So it's just because you happen to have one, not because a team got together and said, all right, let's think about what's going to be least restrictive for Kayla. Well, this is where we moved from in our neck of the woods from saying, let's not do individual evaluations. Let's have a team come together and help have a conversation about what the students' abilities are, what the environment is, and that they're in and they're learning in and living in. What things are we asking them to do or that do they want to do? And this is called the SET framework from Joy Zabala. We use the S, the student, the environment, and the task to choose a tool, but not one person, a suite of people, a team of people working together to have a collaborative experience.
I had a total of 3 evaluations.
Yeah, you had three evaluations. So, which was probably one person doing the evaluation, not a team of people deciding together. Is that fair?
Well, my team was a part of it, I thought.
Oh, well, that's good. That's good because I think that's probably hit or miss depending on where you are and where, geographically and how your school district works. Okay, so let's put all those problems with how to consider AAC and select AAC on the shelf for a moment, because that's one thing to get to the answer of what is the specific language system first approach. Well, something else, there's this phenomenon that exists that in public schools, and I think other organizations use this too, but in public schools specifically, we have this idea called a multi-tier system of support. And what all that means is that you have tons of resources in a public school, or you have resources, tons is subjective, but you have resources in public school, right? And you could put those in three buckets. The first and largest bucket, or if you think of it like a triangle, the base of the triangle, these are called tier one supports. And these are supports that work for everybody, or everybody gets them, right? Like in a lot of school districts, everybody gets a Chromebook. It doesn't matter what your individual abilities are, everybody gets a Chromebook. I've heard a joke that everybody gets smiles. No matter what, everybody gets a smile, right, when you come through the door. That's a tier one support. Tier two supports are what groups of people get. So maybe this classroom or this group of people, whatever the group, however you slice it and dice it, they get this particular support. And then tier three supports are individual supports, right? And I would ask your listeners right now to think, where does AAC live in that continuum in your neck of the woods? And I'm willing to bet you're saying two or three. Three. Yeah, most people are, especially in that old model of the traditional one person making decisions, it's often thinking about that individual person, which is not bad. That's not bad. But is that the most efficient way? So now here's the phenomenon that exists. When you think of this MTSS triangle, most people think about it in 1 year at a time. But if you were to pull the camera back and look at, you were to line up MTSS for the last 15, 20 years, a phenomenon exists. And that is what starts out as tier three eventually becomes tier one. And I'll give you a bunch of examples for all your listeners, right? Kayla, you're using a touch screen right now, aren't you?
Yeah.
Okay. And when they did that evaluation for you, it was a Tobii Dynavox, which is a touchscreen. And then when that wasn't working and you weren't a fan of it and it was glitching, you got the iPad, which is also a touchscreen, right?
Yeah.
Well, back in the mid 90s, we used to have these big things called CRT monitors, these big computer monitors, right? You probably see them in old movies and stuff. And the way people would control a computer was with a mouse, right? And if someone couldn't necessarily have the fine motor control to use the mouse, we would get this special thing called a touch window. Okay, you got a joystick there, yeah. And um, so if you couldn't control it with a mouse, you could use a joystick, or we would put a touch window, it's called a magic touch window, over the CRT monitor so you could touch it with your finger. Now, so here we are in 2025. Your listening audience right now, I bet most people have two or three touch screens on them right now. They have their phone, their tablet, and maybe their computer is a touch screen. But what started out with only a handful of people needed touch screens, over 15, 20 years time, it developed to be the technology used for the masses. I'll give you another example.
Exactly.
Word prediction. Word prediction used to be specialized software called CoWriter or Kurzweil, and you'd get someone like me to come out to do an evaluation to get these few people it, and now it's in Gmail, now it's in your phone, right? Can you imagine not using word prediction? Right? Everyone uses it now. Fair? Another good example?
Yeah.
I'm familiar.
Yeah. Now here's another one, right? Many people back then, if they had trouble typing on the keyboard but could speak, is we would be thinking, all right, well, let's give you speech to text software. And that speech to text software was specialized software called Dragon Naturally Speaking. And it cost a lot of money because you had to get the software and a laptop. And then it cost a lot of time because you had to train people how to do it. And now, your listening audience, how many today have went to their phone, hit the little microphone down on the bottom right, and they've sent a text message by saying it out loud?
It's crazy.
Yeah, it's in your Google. There's a little microphone, like your Google. If you're using ChatGPT or something, there's a microphone. We expect to talk to our technology now, where back in the day we didn't. I'll give you just a couple more quick examples. How many of your listening audience have changed their phone to have a black background with white text, just because that's easier than a white background with black text, right? This Many websites now have moved to dark mode. It's a feature that you can turn on the website because the black background is just easier on your eyes, right? So a lot of people have made that switch. That was just called high contrast for people with visual impairments back in the day. So I could go on and on with examples. Computers at seats. Kids with disabilities were the first people to have computers at seats. Now we live in one-to-one Chromebooks in schools, right? Fair? I love the smile on your face. This is resonating with you? So if that's the pattern, that what starts out at tier 3 eventually becomes tier 1, not always, but mostly, um, then like Braille, for instance, hasn't moved from tier 3 to tier 1, but tactile has. How many people now do 3D printing and you can feel things and touch things to learn stuff besides just reading
I
it on a
love
piece?
this.
Yeah. So, all right. So here's the question, Kayla, and this is what I'll ask your listening audience. Uh, all those things that were tier 3 were accommodations on kids' IEPs, and they eventually become tier 1. There were accommodations. Some of them were on you're pointing to yourself, right? Okay. So if that's the case, right now we could look at what are the most frequently used accommodations and make those tier 1 supports. Like we could steadily do that. And so I did this, Kayla. I went over and I pulled all of our IEP data. I went to our IEP person and I said, can you export a spreadsheet of all of our accommodations? I don't need kids' names. I just need just a spreadsheet of all the accommodations. 15 minutes later, they exported it. I had 64,000 accommodations in a Google sheet, right? Then I did some searches to find out what were the most frequently used accommodations, right? And so I'm going to invite your listening audience to pause right now, write down or type out, or however they want to document it, think through what are the top 3 accommodations, and then unpause because I'm about to reveal the answer, right? So in my neck of the woods, but I think this is pretty standard. The top 3 accommodations are: number 1, the most frequently used accommodations is audio supports. Read aloud, audio books, text to speech, audio supports. And you're pointing to yourself. You had those as accommodations in your IEP? Yeah, you're nodding. Yeah. Okay. And then number 2 is visual supports, so symbols to help, right? And then, or other visuals. And number 3 is small group settings for instruction and test. So I ask you, Kayla, and I ask your listening audience, can you think of something in the world right now that is an audio support? You push buttons and it says something, has visuals on it, so it has picture symbols on it, and is mostly used in small group. I'm talking about AAC, right? So what if we didn't think of AAC as an individual, only this 1 or 2 kids get it, and we do specialized evaluations to get it that don't seem to really work well anyway. Instead, we change it to be, okay, what if we picked a system that we know won't work for everybody, just like we know giving every kid a Chromebook, Chromebooks aren't going to work for everybody. But what if it worked for the most kids? Like, what if we just said, okay, and then we made adjustments from there? Yes, we still do have conversations about how, all right, we gave Kayla this particular app. That's our tier 1 thing, but Kayla's not jiving with it, or we knew that her fine motor wasn't going to be able to hit these cells, so we got to make some adjustments. But for a lot of kids, it would just work. And not just kids with disabilities, English language learners, young kids. So I'm telling you here, Kayla, we have kids in our school district and we have teachers in our school district in first grade, general ed first grade, where we go in, do a lesson for all the kids, bring out iPads and show, hey, these are kids. You're going to have buddies in here that use communication devices, everybody. This is what they are. This is how you can model language on them. These are how the words that we use. This is how you be a good friend to someone who comes in here. Who uses one of these devices, so that you know what's happening. So we do these little trainings for students, and then teachers use it to teach everyone. Everyone. So everyone
L.
has the experience with it. How do you like that?
L.
Yeah. Oh, EL, English language learners.
uh,
Augment alternative language.
Yeah, AAC is something that we can move from tier 3 to tier 1.
mm, 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 mm.
Rachel told me what you say. Augment alternative language.
Uh, what do you mean? Tell me more. Do you like this idea, or are you saying you have issues with it?
Rachel told me what you say instead of a C. Augment an alternative language.
Oh, I see. AAL. Yes, how I like the term AAL. Yes, because we're teaching language with it, right? Um, for years, we would say, I mean, AAC is still the term, and I get that, right? But you could say if AAC is using stuff that is not necessarily using mouth words, right? Then when you give someone a little goldfish cracker card and someone points to that goldfish cracker cards and you gave them a goldfish, that is successfully using AAC. But that's way selling people short. You're not teaching language that way. So I
Yeah,
like to reframe it and thinking, no, it's augmentative alternative language. And then,
yeah.
yes, you're teaching language for everybody. Wouldn't it be cool when you go into a classroom if the kids who are in that classroom kind of knew what AAL or AAC was, knew what to do, and be good friends as you grow older together? And some of them used it to learn language too, because it helps everyone, hurts no one.
Yeah.
I use letters on my shirt to communicate.
Yeah, the letters are a form of symbols, right? Letters are symbols. Um, and so the idea here is pick something that you use as tier 1, knowing that it's not a one size fits all, it's a one size fits most. We're not going to waste a lot of time trialing 3 different things for each individual kid that might need something, because any kid over the age of, I'm going to say 2, and maybe even at the age of 2, if you're not putting a bunch of words together, like 2 words together, we could be thinking about using AAC. We should be thinking about using AAC. We
Yeah.
might only use it temporarily. So there's lots of kids out there that are missing opportunities to learn language using AAC. But if we made it tier 1, picked one thing, and not exclusively tier 1, everyone's got to hear me. I'm not saying it's a one size fits all. It's a one size fits most. So we pick a thing and we use that across our school. We mentioned the symbols and show pictures during our morning announcements. There are low-tech boards in giant posters out on the playground, but
Mm.
also the cafeteria and in the front office and in the gym, and wherever, in the hallways. And each classroom has one in there. And we say, we respect all forms of communication here. We're going to teach everybody how to use them. right? Is this, look at you clapping. All right, yes. So that's the idea. Build a culture around it in your school because it helps everybody. But the thing is, Kayla, here's where it gets tricky. Yeah, but what if this other kid doesn't use that system? Like let's say you we picked, I'll just pick randomly Lamp Words for Life. That's our system. That's our tier one system. It's an app that we're going to use across our district. But someone moves in and they use Proloquo to go. Do we force them to change to be our system? No, 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 no. This is the tier two, tier three, as we say, all right, guys, remember how we're using picture symbols here? Well, our new friend just moved in and they have different symbols. Let's look at some of those, right? We can put those up too to support them. But the idea is you got to start with something so you're not wasting time on a bunch of individual evaluations that don't really work anyway, and then you're not spending your time teaching people how to use the device once you get it. So it gives you more time to do better implementation, and that in a nutshell is the specific language system first approach.
Thank you for being on my show.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Any final questions before we wrap up? You're good? All right. Well, if anyone has questions for me, they should feel free to reach out. I'm happy to help.
We combined everything together.
Awesome. 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 All right, Caleb. Well, thanks for having me on the show. Don't be a stranger. I'm sure I'll see you, at conferences or online. And thanks for doing this podcast. It's exciting stuff.
Please share this episode with everyone you know.
Will do.
If you want to be on, please reach out to me.